Well, good morning everyone. Welcome to Voice Essentials and our live hangout for the week. I hope you've had a great weekend or are coming to the end of a fabulous weekend. We've just finished. Well, I'm well and truly done with my weekend. It is actually currently I think this is going to go down in history as the earliest YouTube live hangout that I've ever done. It's currently still in the 7 o'clocks here in Australia. It's 10 to 8 and I've got a very full day coming up and in fact I've got a very full week coming up, and so I didn't want to miss the opportunity to hang out with you guys and spend some time. Today it's a beautiful spring day outside. I think we're heading to around about 30 degrees. So it is getting a bit warm for spring, but nonetheless we're still relatively comfortable. Make sure you let us know where you're from and what the weather is like in your part of the world. It helps us here as a community to build together and to get to know each other. And we've already got people jumping in. Kathleen, who has had a private session with me before. Nice to see you, Kathleen. Andrea, and Rexay from Kosovo. Nice to have you join us, Rexay. Linda, good to see you, Linda. My kids, Linda, for those of you who are in Australia, my kids are still on school holidays. They are currently going into their second week. I think New South Wales is heading into their first week. We're in our second. So no kids to drop off at school today, which lets me do this earlier session with you. And also, it's Jodie's first day of chemo today. So Jodie starts her 6-month journey of chemo. For those of you who are not yet caught up, my wife was diagnosed with bowel cancer about 6 weeks ago, and really challenging news, but we are on a very positive journey towards seeing her achieve complete healing, which is what the oncologist is aiming for, which is terrific. Of course, I did a live event about that last week. We're not going to go into that again this week, and I explain everything there, and I would love for you to go over and watch. And while I'm at it, I do want to say a very special thank you to all of you who have written just such encouraging, wonderful words of inspiration and support after last week's video. It is kind of weird to know that we have these people from all over the world who are thinking of us, thinking of Jodie and my children as we prepare to take on this journey for the next 6 months. Jodie is in really good spirits. She's looking healthy and she's ready to tackle the journey, which we know that it's going to have its challenges. We're quite pragmatic about that, but nonetheless, she was really encouraged by so many words of encouragement from all of you, from all over the world, and so I did want to just take a quick moment to say thank you to each of you. And even if you didn't feel that you wanted to leave a message, I just want to thank you for your sense of support, that I know that you've all been sending us prayers and good vibes, and so thank you very much. But as I committed to, last week when we finished the discussion around that and I updated you all. I'm going to keep you all up to date, but this is not going to be a channel that suddenly finds itself shifting towards talking about cancer. This is a singing channel, and that's what we want to be doing here. And so I want to be answering your questions. We're going to be doing that a little bit later in today's show, where we will have the opportunity to answer your questions. So please start asking your questions as we speak. Start typing them down and letting us know what you would like me to answer. And if I can, I don't know it all, but if I can answer your question, then we will do that a little bit later in the show. We always answer 4 or 5, sometimes more, sometimes less questions, and I want to be able to do that. Today, what we're going to talk about is the diagnosis of vocal faults and the diagnosis of voice disorders. I want to discuss that in a little bit of length today. Also, make sure you are kind to each other in the comments section. As you can see, I've got the live chat going, and so please be kind to one another. Remember, we are about developing a supportive, healthy, encouraging community here at Voice Essentials. It's not just my space, it's our space, and as the convener of our space, I work really hard to make sure that we are constantly encouraging each other towards better vocal outcomes for each of us, so be sure to do that. Yeah, so let's get on with today's show. And I think we'll do it by doing this.
Sound check. Check 1, check 2.
So, let's talk about this idea of vocal diagnosis. I cannot tell you how many comments, what are really questions that I get on the channel. And incidentally, please don't ever hesitate to leave a comment or a question on one of my videos. As many of you know, we go live here once a week, and sometimes I try to fit a second one in. I'm not going to be able to do that this week. I'm racked and stacked with private clients. But we try to go live once a week, and we also do our very best to, we also do a pre-record video that goes live. Currently, they're going live on a Wednesday. And so I get lots of questions, and I love reading your questions. I love answering your questions on those videos. But inevitably, on many of my videos, I get these questions about vocal diagnosis. I almost said Viagra. I receive no questions about Viagra. Questions about vocal diagnosis. And one of the challenges that I always have to come back with is I am not the person to diagnose your vocal condition. I can have people step into my studio and I can assess their voice, but if I feel there are challenges that sit outside the realm of vocal function, that is the way the muscles are coordinating and the vocal tract shapes are coordinating together to achieve good sound. If the singer's issues sit outside of those parameters, and I am suspicious, or I have some concern that there is a vocal health issue, a pathology, what some people would refer to as an organic issue, then I am not the person to diagnose that condition. And it is my professional responsibility to refer that person on, that singer, on to an ear, nose and throat doctor. And that is a really important point, because I constantly get asked, can you diagnose my voice? What's wrong with it? Do I have nodules? I can tell you, and I've got videos here on the channel, haven't I? And many of you have watched them, and I encourage you to jump over to the channel if you haven't before and go searching. I've got videos on vocal fold nodules, vocal fold hemorrhage. I've got one coming up in a few weeks' time about vocal fold cysts. We've done ones on reflux. And I'll continue to develop these videos sporadically about vocal pathologies, but they are information. They are not designed to diagnose your vocal disorder if you feel you've got one. And the reason why I can't diagnose your voice fault here on YouTube, or even if you were to step into my studio and present yourself in person to my studio, I can't do it, because the only way to diagnose your vocal fault correctly and fully is to have an ear, nose and throat doctor, preferably a laryngologist, an ear, nose and throat doctor who specializes in voice, is to have them scope your voice. And so we have either a flexible scope that goes up through the nose and sits above the vocal folds to have a look, or a fixed scope that would go through the mouth. And that way we are looking at the vocal folds, we're looking at the mechanism to assess what sort of challenges the voice is having. And do we see nodules? Do we see a cyst? Do we see polyps? Do we see granulomas? Do we see simply the impact of reflux? Or is it purely a functional issue that needs to be addressed with either speech therapy or work with a singing voice specialist such as myself? And therein lies the challenge for many of us, is in a world where we do want to hop on to Google and self-assess. And so I think many people, for example, arrive on my channel because I've got these videos, and they're looking to self-assess with the small assistance of basically me confirming yay or nay. You know, when Jody was diagnosed with bowel cancer, the first piece of advice we were given by the gastroenterologist was, do not get onto Google and search, you know, all of this stuff about bowel cancer, etc. There is so much misinformation and so much so-called self-help. And for the most part, I was able to resist the temptation, especially in those first days, to Google Jody's cancer and what the possible outcomes were. I must admit, I gave in it, but I did go to a really good source in the Australian Cancer Council, just for looking for, I just wanted a little bit of reassurance at the time. The point, though, is that when it came to us finding out, you know, what is Jody's cancer all about, we had to wait for the histology. We needed for Jody's surgery to be done, for the cancer to be removed, and for then the professional pathologists to assess. Not even the doctors, the gastroenterologist or the surgeon was willing to tell us what they thought it might be. And I'm not going to do that with your voice. If someone says to me, oh, I've got a really raspy voice, you know, what's my issue? I am not going to sit here and tell you, oh, well, you've got nodules and so you've got to go and have them removed, or you've got to go and have speech therapy. That would be irresponsible on my part, and it would be a wrong thing for you to take that advice, because so many vocal pathologies will present in a similar way to each other. The challenge is that some pathologies will self-repair. Some pathologies will repair with speech therapy intervention. Some pathologies, however, require surgical intervention, and no amount of therapy in the first instance is going to bring about the repair of that pathology. A vocal fold cyst, a mucus retention cyst, for example, is one of those conditions. And so it is so important that you receive the diagnosis from the ear, nose and throat doctor, again preferably a laryngologist, to assess what are we dealing with, and then to strategize, to plan what it is that we're going to do to deal with those concerns. And once you've got the plan, you can put the plan into place, and again that plan almost certainly is going to involve some speech therapy, and more likely than not, working with a singing voice specialist like myself. So I wanted to really make that point to many of you. I'm preaching to the choir, and many of you already know this, but I think it is a good thing for people to hear and to have them to have that reaffirmed to them. It can be challenging. I understand that in some places in the world there is circumstance and situation where people don't have easy access to ear, nose and throat doctor assessment, and for that reason I understand that people might find themselves Googling and doing all those sorts of things to build a self-assessment. But really, at the end of the day, the only way to correctly diagnose is to have that assessment. So wanted to make that point. It's not born out of frustration that I make today's discussion point, but certainly wanted to throw that out there. Let's turn ourselves now to some discussion and to some Q&A. So many of you hopefully have left some questions. We've got some good discussion already going on here. I can see Bartek has said, hello Dr. Dan, at last a hangout at civilized time. Thank you Bartek, and thank you for your well wishes to Jody. Well, yeah, look, this is a very unusual time, Bartek, so I'm glad to hear that today's hangout is helpful to you. In fact, another reason, let me show you, another reason why I've had to do it today is because I was going to do it at 11 o'clock, Bartek. So, but I own a Galaxy S7 Edge, and yesterday I just noticed that there was a small bulge. That's hard to see, but small bulge on the side of the screen. When I took the cover off, as I'm doing right now, I suddenly realized that my phone back cover has lifted. And if I can show you, see how that should be like that. My battery has blown out. So as a result, I need to go and hand this phone in, because it is obviously a risk, and you know, is broken and needs to be fixed under warranty. So I need to do that before I then take Jody to her first round of chemo. So if that works out for you, Bartek, I'm very pleased for you. I was a little frustrated to find, because that's actually the second time. This is the second S7 Edge that this has happened to me for. So in the big scheme of life, not a big issue, but nonetheless it did alter my time approach today. Coming down here, good to have so many of you joining in, and Baron Unlimited, nice to have you join us. A nice 88 degrees in California. That was terrible, wasn't it? My apologies for any American accents that I do or don't possess. Okay, so let's jump down here. I want to jump into once again, thank you for all of your warm comments for Jody. She really has been, and I say it again, she's really been encouraged by your thoughts and comments. So there's a question down here from Bartek. Is this possible for a baritone to train high notes so they sound eventually stunning? Bartek, that is such a timely question. One of my most successful videos on YouTube, when I say successful, one of the most watched, my second most highly watched video was a video I did, was it last year? I think it was last year, 12 months ago, with a friend of mine, Mark Baxter, who was another creator here on YouTube. And Mark and I did a collaboration video where we compared the differences between a baritone and a tenor. And what we were trying to do on that video was show, hey, there are differences, but to celebrate the differences. We were certainly, I'd like to think both of us are relatively self-secure in our voice types and in our anatomy and what God's given us, and So we were trying to express, hey, we're just celebrating who we are and what we do. The amount of negative, there's been a lot of really positive feedback on that video, but we've also received a lot of negative feedback with people saying that Mark doesn't know what voice type he is, therefore by inference, I don't know what voice type is. And in my humble opinion, those comments are naive and ignorant to an extent. And so I have just done a new video that goes live this Wednesday morning, 5 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, that is specifically designed to define what is a baritone voice. Ladies, I really want you to watch this as well. It's not just for the guys, because many of the concepts that we're going to be talking about will apply over to female voice as well. Bartek, I want you to watch that video so that you can learn more about the baritone voice and learn more about how to correctly define a voice classification. Many people want to define voice classification around high note and low note. And whilst that is a part of the picture, it is not the whole story. And there are many other factors that need to be accounted for. And so, Bartek, I want you to have a watch of that video. I think you'll find it find it helpful. You've saying you've watched it. You haven't. You won't have watched the new video yet because it hasn't gone live yet. So it will go. The new video will go live on Wednesday, and it's a completely new video. But I dare say you're referring to the Mark Baxter one that I did in collaboration. Andrea is saying, good topic that we're talking about today with vocal diagnosis. You have a question regarding this question. Please leave your question here, Andrea, in the comments section if you could, so that I can answer that for you. Many of you are saying that the Samsung battery, typical Samsung battery. Well, sadly, yeah. Though I'm a sucker and I will be buying, well, I'll be getting them to, if they don't simply replace it and they want to upgrade it, I will be going to another Samsung phone. You know, you become used to these things, don't you? Okay, thanks Linda for the feedback about the Wednesday videos too. For those of you who don't know, I've recently moved it from Thursday back to Wednesday. And it seems to be going okay and certainly suiting Linda, which is good. I've used iPhones for a year and had no Android related issue. Yeah, there'd be a reason for that, Bartek. I like your sense of humor. What about light joint jaw displacement? Jose is asking, what about light joint jaw displacement? Jose, I'm not familiar with that particular terminology. If you're talking about displacement of the temporomandibular joint, where the jaw is perhaps becoming displaced and sitting forward or back, I can only imagine that would be quite painful. And I'd be encouraging you to see someone about that, which I'm certain that you have by virtue of probably the pain. Jaw, just a small discussion around jaw. Many people orientate to the jaw as if it's a primary articulator. And the moment your jaw becomes a primary articulator, your tongue, which is a primary articulator, typically then becomes secondary. It gets lazy. And our jaw, you know, the only people that need to use their jaw for articulation are Muppets, because the Muppets don't have tongues. And so they do have to do this to articulate. we have tongues. Our tongue is our primary articulator. We want the tongue to be doing all the work, the primary, the lion's share of the work. We want the jaw to have a sense of neutrality to it. And neutral is not fixed, but it has a movement that's free, but certainly not, into second position where the jaw drops down and the joint, in a sense, not dislocates, but comes out and forward. So again, Jose, I'm not 100% familiar with your language there, but hopefully that's helpful. And Paul's asked any suggestions around. I'm just jumping over here. Any questions? I have like an opposite question. Any tips or ideas for singing lower rock blues songs? I'm a light voice tenor who struggles with this sometimes. Well, as it just so happens, and you're going to be thinking I'm just making this up. I am not making this up. Not this week, but next week, I've got a video that will be going live on Wednesday that will discuss singing lower notes with exercises, and it will help you to workshop your lower notes for both male and female. And so, Paul, it sounds like that is going to be of great help to you, which I'm pleased to know. So, Paul, make sure you check that out and have a gaze at that. I think we're going to have a shorter session today. I'm going to answer one more question. And I'm going to answer, I'm going to go to Rexay's question here, who's from Kosovo. And Rexay, I think this is the first time we've ever had you join us. And if it isn't, well, welcome. And by the way, if this is the first time you ever joined us here live, make sure you hit subscribe and the white bell icon so that you can be notified of our sessions when we go live. It's the only way that I let my subscriber base know that I'm going live. We do it generally Monday or Tuesday, mostly Monday. Correct me if I'm wrong, everyone. It's mostly Mondays afternoons, but this, as I said, this is a really early one, but you can get notified by hitting that white icon next to the subscribe button. So Rexay is asking, my voice momentarily is very unstable. And the question you can see is actually up here. I can't really sustain any note without it breaking, or it feels like a little tremor on my voice. What vocal exercise should I use to stabilize my voice overall? Often, Rexay, what people do when they're wanting to stabilize their voice is they create more tension. And in the initial sense, that can feel like it's doing the job that you want it to. Most singers will do that by pushing more air from underneath the larynx, which in turn invokes a response of the rear of the tongue to come back and form or refer to as tongue root tension, to come back and lean back and sit heavy on the larynx. And so you've got this positioning of the larynx and fixing it into place. But over time, the muscles start to develop in a sense, a functional weakness. And so that you need more pressure and more pressure and more pressure. And you start to get a tremolo in the voice, and all sorts of other issues will happen. It is counterintuitive, but you need to head the opposite direction, because you need to go. You need to reduce your air pressure, get the tongue up and off the larynx, and to start with, sorry, my computer was talking to me. And to start with, we want to go looking to, it will feel like your voice is completely unstable, because what we're doing is we're removing all of the support structure, the extrinsic tension from around the larynx. And so I want to encourage you to just reduce that sense of, yeah? And so I would encourage you to jump over and have a look, Rexay, at the channel. Go looking for videos about breath management, and also go looking for videos about vocal constriction and about reducing the level of strain and stress on the channel. And in fact, there's a couple of playlists on the channel. If you go to the channel page, go to the playlist, and just go looking for, reduce vocal constriction, reduce vocal strain, and there'll be a playlist there for you that will help you to do that. And I'm sure that will be of help to you. So there we go. I'm just looking back over here. Mark Burns, just been listening and watching. Thanks, Doctor. You're more than welcome, Mark. Good to have you join us. And so there you go. Another really fabulous, I love hanging out with you guys and answering your questions. And be sure to check out the video today. On Wednesday. Again, I'd love to get your feedback and your thoughts on that. And again, thank you for all of your messages of warmth and hope and prayers of support for Jody. We start chemo today. It's going to be a new world. In fact, we had chemo education last week. Such a new world. So much to learn. But we are embracing the journey because it is now a part of us. And as I said, I'll keep you up to date as we head through. But for those of you who have never joined us before, we would love for you to join us on a regular basis here. Hit that subscribe button, hit the icon, the white bell icon, and be sure to just to join us. I'm just getting rid of that. To join us every week and hang out and ask your questions. We love to do that here at Voice Essentials. So have a great week, everyone. I really do hope that you're all singing well and that you're all healthy and happy. As I said to my kids, happy, healthy kids. And I very much look forward to seeing you in the next Voice Essentials live hangout. I'll see you all soon. What is my name? My name is Dr. Dan. Sing well.